All right, here we go. So we're going to do square roots and cube roots. So the biggest thing we have to do, so when we're talking about square roots, think about my orange, you guys should know this, my orange posters that I point to all the time at the top of the board. So I'm asking, remember this question says, let's do 64. This little guy says, what am I squaring to get 64? Okay, so what number am I squaring to get 64? Be 8, right? Make sure you guys chime in. The thing about that is what if I squared 8? Does that equal 64? But what if I square negative 8? Doesn't that also equal 64? So we need to be able to make sure that we're doing positive and negative 8. So let's go to calculators. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see my calculator. Can you guys see it on your screen at all? I'm not seeing anything. So pull your calculators up on your computers. If you look at, let's see, look at the, make sure it's the sideways view where it's got the square roots and cube roots. So if you look at the 4 on your calculator and go to the left, you should see a square root symbol with a 2. That says, what's the square root of this? If you look to the right of it, you see cube root, meaning what do I cube to get this number? So if you put in, let's look at the first one at 121. You want to put in 121. Everybody do this on your calculator. I don't know if you can see mine. And we want the square root of it, so hit square root. And you should get 11. But we need to talk about that because if I square 11, positive 11, I'll get 121. But if I square negative 11, I'll also get 121. So my answer has to be a positive or a negative 11. So when you type it into your class kick, you'll type this, positive, negative 11. Okay, next one on B. Make sure you guys chime in if you have questions. On this one, it's a fraction, but if you look at that, you should recognize from our orange posters that 16 was always on our orange posters because it's a perfect square. We just found out that 121 is a perfect square. So what we're doing is we're going to take the square root of both sides. But when I do this with a fraction, separate it. What's the square root of 16? And what's the square root of 121? So the square root of 16 is 4. And we just found out that the square root of 121 is 11. But remember that if I square 4/11 positive, I'll get 16 over 121. But also, if I square negative 4/11, that's a negative times a negative, would also be. So your final answer for this one, it's a little crowded, sorry, would be positive negative 16 over 121. I'm sorry, I said that wrong, 4/11, my fault. All right, now we're going to go into cube root. This is saying, what do I cube to get 64? So on your calculator, go in and punch in 64. You guys are going to do this on your own here in a minute. And hit the cube root button. That's the one that has the little square root symbol, but it's got a 3 in there. So click it, and we should have gotten 4. Now on this one, when we're cubing, you can't do the positive negative. Because if I did -4, -4 times -4 times -4, a negative times a negative is a positive, but then a positive times a negative would be a negative. And we only want the cube root of positive 64. So on the cube roots, you're only going to get a positive answer. Okay, on D, same thing works here that we just did up on this one. So I have to take the cube root of x cubed, which means I take the cube root of 8 and the cube root of 125. So if I go to my calculator and punch in 8 and hit cube root, I get 2. If I go to my calculator and punch in 125, hit cube root, I get 5. So x equals 2/5. I don't know quite what happened there. Sorry about that. All right, what can you see of mine? Can you see the notebooks? Is that what you guys, I don't know because I thought you guys were seeing it. I'll post it all. Okay, let's go to number 1 because this is a redo of it. Can you guys see it? Okay, so let's go to this one. So square root x squared equals 144. So you want to, I can't? Can you see it now? Okay. So let's look at number 1. I want to know, what do I square to get 144? So I take the square root of both sides. So what do I square to get 144? If you go to your calculator and you punch in 144 and hit your square root, you should get 12. I don't know where I cut off last time. But did you guys hear me say that if I square positive 12, I get 144? But if I square negative 12, I also get 144? Oh, and then I cut off? Oh, man. Okay, so let me go that way. Okay, does everybody see that one? Okay, so this one here, it's a fraction, but it doesn't mean anything different. You're still going to take the square root. And if you recognize, isn't 9 one of my orange poster numbers, and then 100 at the top of the room where I always point to? So when you're taking the square root of x, take the square root of 9 and the square root of 100. Which, if you square root of 9 is 3. You can use your calculators. And the square root of 100 is 10. Again, though, if I square positive 3/10, I get 9/100. But if I square negative 3/10, a negative times a negative, I do still get a positive. So when you write your final answer, you have to write positive, negative, 3/10. Does that make sense? All right, next one. Cube root. This is saying what I cube times what I cube times what I cube. So if I go to my calculator and I punch in 27 and hit your cube root symbol, that's your cube root, or excuse me, it's your square root symbol, but it has a 3 in it. So on that, you should have gotten x equals 3. Now on this, we don't have to do positive negative, because if I do a -3 times a -3 times a -3, negative times a negative is a positive times a negative would be a -27, and that's not what we want. We only wanted to cube root a positive 27. Okay, so this would be your answer. So on cube roots, you're not going to have the positive negative. On square roots, you're going to have the positive negative in front of your answers. So on this one, you're going to cube root, and you're going to separate it. If you go on your calculator and cube root 1, you will get 1. If you cube root 8, you should get 2. So x equals 1/2. Questions, chat, let me look, I'm seeing. Nash, am I missing anything? Okay, I'm going to go back up and do B, C, and D just so you guys can see it. All right. Excuse me. I got to take the square root. So take the square root of the top and the square root of the bottom. So if you punch in 16 on your calculator and hit the square root button, you'll get 4. If you punch in 121, we found out earlier on example A, it's 11. But because it's a square, it's the positive or negative for 11. All right. C was x cubed equals 64. So on this one, I'm wanting to know what's the cube root. What am I multiplying 3 times to get this? So we're going to take the cube root. Look for that button on your calculator. Punch in 64, and you should get x equals 4. Type a message if you've got something you need. And then the last one was the x cubed equals 125. So I want to know what's the cube root of each of these. So if I punch in 8, hit my cube root symbol, I should get 2. And if you punch in 125 and hit your cube root symbol, you should get 5. And that would be your answer. Ruby just asked, so all you're going to do, so like if we were doing the last one, she asked how would you put it in? So you just put a plus, slash, minus, and then for the last problem we just did, 2/5. Did everybody see that? I just put it in the chat. And make sure you do positive slash negative. Don't do negative slash positive, because that's not how I have it typed into ClassKit. Okay, questions? Everybody got their calculator up? Did you see how to do it on your calculator? Lesson, I'm getting ready to assign it. Elijah, Eli, I'm getting ready to assign it right now. I just had not released it yet, but I'm going to put it up right now. Everything's going to be due Tuesday. That gives you time. It gives me time to answer. I don't want you guys to feel so stressed and overloaded. This should be a fairly simple lesson, and then we'll do one lesson next week over Pythagorean theorem, and we'll probably do a couple things on that because it's pretty important when you get into geometry your sophomore year. So I want you guys to have a good idea of that. So just plan on this one being due Tuesday. We'll do a Pythagorean theorem next week one day. But again, I don't want people getting stressed out. But please do on Class Kick raise your hand. And no, Emma, no meeting tomorrow unless you need me to, unless I hear from people. I'm going to redo the notes and I'll post the video. I'll redo all these notes and repost it. And then we'll go from there. I don't want everybody getting stressed out, but I do need to see some progress from you guys. Please log in and work, okay? Other than that, I am. Hey, who do I look like in class? Can you guys see me? A bunch of boys, right, with your hoods on. Yeah, Cody. Okay, so does anybody at Michael agreed? Does anybody else need anything else? Okay, just email me if you need anything, and I will try and help you, okay? All right, I'll see you guys. Have a good day. Have a good weekend. Get outside. Be safe. Bye, Jonathan. Bye, Alex. Bye, Antonio, Dominic, Emma.